Fatima Moore. Along with Dave Bartholomew, we are serving as the Metropolitan Council Nominating Committee co-chairs. Unfortunately, Dave is unable to attend tonight's meeting due to a prior commitment. Thank you for joining us for this evening's public meeting, either in person in Minneapolis or streaming online. We have a cohort of candidates that we will hear from over the course of the evening. Each candidate will get 10 minutes for their interview. Within those 10 minutes, candidates will answer 3 questions we sent in advance and answer any follow-up questions from the nominating committee. There will be a staff member keeping time, and they will give the candidates verbal notifications at the 2-minute and 1-minute mark. Please note, we will also take a break or 2 during tonight's interview. We will keep those to a minimum so we keep the process moving for all involved. At the conclusion of the interview process on Tuesday, tomorrow, January 31, the nominating committee will recommend a group of candidates to the governor's office. The governor will make the final decision on who will represent the Metropolitan Council and has until March 6, 2023 to do so. We want to do a quick round of introductions before we get started, though. We'll go around the room and have each nominating committee introduce themselves to the candidates and to the public. I'll start, and then I'll start with members on my right. I'm Fatima Moore, and I'm very excited to be here with you all today. Go ahead.
Chelsea Globitz.
David Dively.
Molly Cummings.
Paul Gardner.
Mohammed Ali Noor.
Heidi Garrido.
Janet Williams.
Sam Rockwell.
Bradley Titus.
Adriana Jareb.
And I'm Charlie Zelli. I'm here in my ex officio capacity as chair of the Met Council.
Jim Erickson.
Melissa Manderscheid.
All right. Thank you, members. Okay, so let's get started with the first interviews. First, we have District 7 interviews. And first on deck is Robert Lilligren. Please join us at the table. Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the Met Council. Continuing in the Met Council and serving as a council member, please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last, and sharing your pronouns if you'd like.
Sure, I'm Robert Lilligren, Lilligren. My pronouns are he, him.
Thank you. Various members will ask the 3 questions that we've sent to you in advance, and your time will start once the first question's asked. Before we ask those questions, would you like to make an opening statement?
Just briefly, thank you, Chair, and nominating committee members. And first, I want to say thanks for your service. I know this is a ton of work, and it's greatly appreciated. Thanks for serving the region in this way, and thanks for letting me go first. I had some scheduling issues, and before I knew this was my interview night, I had committed to go to a symposium on behalf of Meet Minneapolis, our Minneapolis Convention and Business Association. I'm an officer there. So I'm leaving here, jumping on a plane to go to Dallas. But before anyone gets jealous, please know Dallas is under a winter storm warning right now. And then just briefly introduce myself. I'll start in Ojibwe, which is my grandmother's first language. So Buju Nindinuiganaduk, Baba Biganakag and Dunjaba, Ojawish Koganejin and Dodam, I'm Robert Lilligren. I'm a dual citizen of the United States and of the White Earth Ojibwe Nation. I'm a 3rd-generation Minneapolis urban Indian. I was raised in what was then rural Anoka County in Ham Lake. My mom is from St. Paul, so Ramsey County. My dad, Minneapolis, Hennepin County. My 6 siblings live or have lived in 6 of the 7 metro counties. So I very much view myself by nature and by practice as a true regionalist, and I'm here to ask you to please consider me for reappointment to the Metropolitan Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with our first question.
Good evening. The first question will be what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Thank you for the question. And this is a hard one, right? It could be a million different policy issues. Community safety, huge, especially on transit, climate change and the disparate impacts of climate change on different populations, realizing what a thriving and competitive region looks like in the 21st century. But the one I will pick as a priority is housing. And as a region, we're not keeping pace with the demand, the housing demand. It creates a cap on how our region can grow. We cannot adequately house people for our basic workforce needs, for example. And it just goes beyond affordable housing and even homelessness issues, which I've had opportunity to kind of have a front row seat working on in the community. It's about housing options. It's about supporting life cycle housing of many different types in all communities. And I feel that at the Met Council, we don't have a lot of tools to use to address housing. I feel like we can use the tools that we have to better address the needs, both the funding and financing tools and the policy tools through comprehensive planning. And we have the ability to create supports for communities that are challenged in maybe building more housing, especially more affordable housing. And I think that that's just going to be, that's the issue, the defining issue for our region right now is housing. Thanks.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I just realized I'm missing the middle page of my notes, so I'm actually going to be just speaking extemporaneously, so watch out. So I love being part of government. I love being part of regional government, and I really have taken this seriously and committed myself deeply to being involved beyond just the regular committee meetings and council meetings. In my first term, I participated in 3 policy work groups, one on policing and public safety, one on housing, and which I still serve on, or once it's reconstituted, and then one on transit as well. And I don't run around looking for all of these opportunities for extra work, but I really felt when these groups were being put together, these internal work groups, that I had certain expertise and experience to bring to each one of those. And my intent is to continue working in the policy realm to the greatest extent possible and as much as I can contribute. And in the communities I represent almost all, my district is Minneapolis. I have one suburban community, Robbinsdale, so I went to their city hall, met with their city council. I'll be out there again in March, provided I'm still on the Met Council at the time. And then within the city of Minneapolis, I stay very involved in civic affairs, the Meet Minneapolis Board, like I talked about. I served on Minneapolis Truth and Reconciliation work group, Minneapolis Next, which was about economic investment within the city post COVID and post unrest following George Floyd's murder as well. And Met Council districts are huge. They're almost 200,000 people. So staying connected to the communities takes some effort. And I feel like I am most effective when I'm involved in local issues, investment in cultural districts, for example. I'm very involved in that within the city, across the metro as well. And I think that really reflects local communities, hyper-local economic investment. And so staying in touch with what's happening very grassroots, very much in the people through that kind of work.
Thank you. So what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you've worked with?
Yeah, thanks. And this is one I feel like I could talk all night. And as you guys can probably tell, I could talk all night if I chose. But I would say equity as a central theme in my activism, my advocacy, my political work, and my professional work. And it really has been my whole life. And my work on the Met Council, and I kind of put it under the banner of justice, social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and that's really been what I've done for ever. Those are cornerstones of my political and professional life. So I'll give 3 quick examples. One is during my time on the Minneapolis City Council, a huge focus of my first term especially was the redevelopment of the Midtown Exchange, which is now the Sears project. I just lived a few blocks from there. It had been blighting our whole part of South Minneapolis, and I knew that it needed to engage people from the community to be successful. You could put all the money in the world in there, but if the community didn't feel they were part of it, it would not really work. And so I went in, I was a brand new council member, I didn't really know what I was doing, convened a ton of people, labor representatives, people who trained people and workforce, city staff, and others, and we set historically high workforce goals for women and minority participation, both on the skilled trade and contractor level. And we also had the people at the table who could set ways to meet those goals. For of the roughly dozen goals that we set, we met every single one but one, which had to do with younger workers. And those are the numbers that the city still uses, the city of Minneapolis, as they set goals on their big projects today. So we help change the system. Another one is at my day job at Native American Community Development Institute. We work with an organization called Friends of the Falls, which is concerned with the disposition of a little piece of property down by the lock and dam, 3.5 acres. It's not huge, but we have been working with this organization to engage Native people, to put Native voices in the center and in the decision-making of this process. And it's been about 2 years, and we've had much greater success than I ever thought we were gonna have, and I think you'll see more evidence of that success as we go forward. And again, we're changing a system, right? We're changing the way a system engages Native people that can inform how we use land, these incredibly sacred spaces that are often tremendously desecrated by industrialization, colonization. And then a final is on the Met Council, and it's a home ownership pilot that we just established last year. For my role as chair of the Community Development Committee, I've really advocated to direct some of our Livable Communities Act funds, the ones that are specifically called Local Housing Incentives Account. And it's just a little, it was a couple million, not very much money. We found a little extra money, but we put into a pilot. It's just kind of launching, but it's to encourage home ownership amongst communities that have traditionally not had a high level of home ownership, and to address the gap in home ownership in our region.
Great, thank you. Are there any follow-up questions or clarifying questions from Mr. Lilligren?
2 minutes.
Great, well, you still have 2 minutes if you would like to leave us with closing remarks.
Oh, wow, I wasn't prepared for closing remarks, but I would really welcome the opportunity to continue and expand my public service on the Metropolitan Council. I find it very, very rewarding. As I said, by nature, I'm a regionalist, and I really look forward to promoting the region and really focusing on some economic development, hyper-local economic development, which in my world is a cultural district or a cultural corridor. But every small community has a vision for its economic future to support investment there.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
so
Miigwech.
much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Enjoy Dallas.
Enjoy Dallas.
Thanks.
Yeah, with your snowstorm. Members, that is the only interview for District 7. And so we will be moving on to the interview for District 14. And we have 2, technically. Are we ready for Mr. Martinson?
Yeah, we could do that. I believe we also have candidate Harrison here. Perfect. So
Harrison,
we can also
perfect.
just, interview candidate Harrison and then go into Martinson.
Great. All right, Mr. Harrison, please approach the table. And while you approach, what we'd like to do at the beginning of each new district interview is go around and introduce ourselves to members who are just joining or from the public who are just joining. So we will do our introductions, give you an opportunity to provide opening statements, and then go into questions again. And I'll start again. I'm Fatima Moore. Go ahead to my far right, please.
Chelsea Glavitz-Gabio.
David Dively.
Molly Cummings.
Paul Gardner.
Mohammed Ali Noor.
Heidi Garrido.
Janet Williams.
Sam Rockwell. Bradley Titus.
Adriana Jareb.
And I'm Charlie Zelli. I'm here as ex officio as chair of the council.
Jim Erickson.
Melissa Manderscheid.
Nice to meet you all. I'm glad you have name tags because I couldn't remember all the names.
Absolutely fair. Well, Mr. Harrison, please take an opportunity to provide opening statements before we proceed with our questions for you.
Sure. First, my name is Brian Harrison, spelled Harrison. I use he, him pronouns, and I too am really happy to be here. I have to start with a confession. I was not born in Minnesota, and I know that is often the death knell of someone who wants to represent people who live in Minnesota. I was born in a magical, faraway place called Iowa. And so I mention it because I have no preconceived notions of what it means to be a Minnesotan. And I use that to my advantage. I live in St. Paul, and I mentioned one time early on that I went across the river to go to a Target. And people looked at me like I was crazy. Why did you do that? You went across the river. And I don't have any of those preconceived notions of what should and shouldn't be in a way that others who have lived here their entire life might. And I, like I said, use that to my advantage because I see how things could be rather than how things have been. And I like to think that that is an asset. We've lived here about 5 years, and we moved here for all of the reasons that folks moved to Minnesota, the quality of life for our kids. And I've enjoyed all of those things, but I also realize that not everyone has the same access to institutions and the privileges that I do. And so I feel called to make sure that everyone has that same access and everyone has that same quality of life, regardless of the way they look, of where they live. And I also would like to, among other things, create a clearer and more robust bond between citizens and policymakers. It sort of gets into question number 2, so I'll stop there. But I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate your questions.
Great, thank you. And we'll start with our questions.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The first question would be, what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Sure. Unfortunately, I have the same answer as the first candidate, housing. And I bring it up because I have started working with an organization called Claire Housing. I joined the board about a year ago. And its charge is to help unhoused individuals living with HIV and AIDS to find the housing that they need. And one of the keys to their work is an approach that says that housing is healthcare. And really what they mean by that is there's no panacea to public policy, but housing is a great way to get people down a healthier and more stable path. And they have found for the folks living with HIV and AIDS, finding a stable place to live, a place to close a door and feel safe and secure, leads them to seek out more physical and mental health providers, that they are more likely to comply with taking medications that extend their life and their quality of life. They're more likely to seek and find stable employment. They are more likely to address substance use and misuse. And they finally have an ability to take a breath and focus on creating community. And that is all from helping them find somewhere where they feel safe and secure. And so surely housing doesn't solve every problem, but working with this group has really shown me that it can be the start, like I said, of a road toward inclusion, toward health, and toward happiness. And so there are plenty of issues to tackle, but housing is a core one for Claire Housing, and I think it is for the region as well. So that's one issue that I would particularly focus on. I would also add, finding the right mix of housing is important. I think we need many different kinds, and they serve different purposes. And again, my eyes have been opened to the need in our region for folks living with HIV and AIDS to find the stable housing that, again, they need to go down a path toward self-sufficiency, toward health and happiness. So I think we need to ensure that safe, affordable housing is within reach for everyone, regardless of the color of their skin and the size of their bank account. And so that's why I think housing is so front and center in the things that need to be addressed. Now I'm finished. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Sure. Gallup asks a polling question, and they have for decades. And they ask, what is the most important problem facing our country? And over the years, you can imagine the answers. Their new poll came out a few weeks ago, and the number one given answer for the most important problem facing our country was government and poor leadership in government. And that is an incredibly large problem. Having people have the opportunity to list what they think is most urgent in their lives, thinking that they're not heard and seen by their government, is among one of the worst problems that I can imagine. So in that vein, a few phrases from the Met Council website caught my eye. One of them was engaging a full cross-section of the community in decision-making. And the concept of a full cross-section is so important. I think often in terms of electoral politics, people feel as if politicians and parties ask things of them when they need something from them, when an election is approaching, when they need funds to fund their campaign. But in a non-electoral context, it's so important to let people know we don't want anything from you other than to listen. And I think that would be my philosophy in joining the council. Now, there's a second point on the website, deepening public engagement. It's something that I've done in my personal life, in my professional life, and I found that organizing simple coffee conversations and being visible and being out in the community and letting people come on their own terms and having casual conversations can do a world of good in terms of understanding needs and wants in the community. So among other things, I would plan to hold weekly office hours, both in person and online, to increase access with a focus on accountability and transparency. I'd hold regular meetings with community leaders and business leaders, government leaders. I firmly believe that people with something at stake in a policy outcome should have every opportunity to be heard. Obviously, not everyone's preferences can be met, but everyone at least should be heard. I'd also like to add monthly policy briefings on an issue that's in front of the council. I'm a political scientist by training, and one of the things that I have to do is take relatively complicated information and break it down into normal person speak. And I do that every class I teach. Students look at me like, what in the world are you talking about? And you have to find a way to explain to folks what it means for them, why the stakes are important for them. And I think a monthly policy briefing, giving people sort of the lay of the land of a policy that's in front of the council would be really important. And that's something that I would love to be able to do. Lastly, I think I could offer a strong online presence that increases access to a segment of the population. And there are a few local grassroots organizing apps that make communication with stakeholders and policymakers really easy. So I think that would be a logical addition to a communication plan. But I think again, to go back to the beginning, the sense of a cross-section of a community is vitally important, and making sure that you meet with everyone who has a stake in the outcomes that we're discussing.
Thank you. Question number 3 is, what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization you've worked with?
Sure. I have created several organizations over the last 15 years dedicated to LGBTQ political engagement, to try to get folks in the LGBTQ community to both understand politics and to take steps to be more involved in politics, electorally speaking, and simply from an advocacy standpoint. And I built a social media following of over 500,000 people doing these efforts with these organizations. And I think I've had relative success because we've discussed intersectional policies, things that cross lines of race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, HIV status, religion, and all of these things need to be discussed and discussed respectfully. That is a strain of my research as a political scientist, how to speak to people who disagree with you in a way that doesn't alienate you from them. I have a book from 2020 that goes into lots of detail, but essentially being able to speak to someone with whom you disagree, and both of you leave the conversation with a deeper understanding of each other's stances, is the hallmark of a deliberative democracy. It's something that we need to do better, and it's something that I would strive to model as a member of the council. It's really easy to be diminutive and to tear other people down if they disagree with you or they think differently. And as all of you know in your personal lives, as do I, it's really difficult to do, but it's something that I try very, very hard to model in the classroom and outside. I've designed a LGBTQ politics and policy course that I've taught several times, and I'm proud to say it was the first time it was offered in every department in which I've taught it. And again, looking at the variety of voices within the LGBTQ community, reading, discussion, making sure that again, a good cross-section of the community is heard and represented is an incredibly important part of being a political scientist and an instructor. Particularly looking at trans women of color. It has been a big policy focus for my research and my teaching, and it's something that I would bring to the council as well. And in essence, making sure that we are aware of and appreciative of views of people who are traditionally not included in political and policy discourse. I ask them to give students, maybe not weekly, but pretty close to weekly. And what I have them do is bring up a new policy, and I say, I want you to think of the needs and expectations of people who look differently than you, who live differently than you, and who love differently than you. What is it that they want? What is it that they expect? And how is it different from the way that you look at this particular policy? And so I think I advance equity in the hundreds, maybe thousands, I'm getting old, of students that I've taught to teach them how to engage in respectful conversation, to step out of themselves and to position take, and to think through the implications of very important policies that are made on councils like the Met Council. And again, would be happy to bring that background and that viewpoint to work with the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any follow-up questions or clarifying questions? If you want to leave us with a brief closing statement, please feel free to.
I think I've covered a lot of ground in that
Right.
9 minutes, but I will say thank you for having me. Hopefully I've delineated the values that I would bring to the council, and I look forward to your consideration.
Wonderful,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll be going virtual for our next interview.
Yep, and we'll just need 1 or 2 minutes here to just transition to our virtual interview.
Right.
The resume for the guy that just, I don't have one either. I try to figure out where he was in here.
We'll see him.
Yeah,
The candidate should come up on your screen.
Is there a camera we should look at to make them feel like we're looking at them?
We
Oh,
do
man.
have to turn around the room, and our tech folks will rotate the camera, so
Rotate around.
whoever is
Based on who's
speaking.
speaking.
Yes. Mhm.
Standby will be connected in 1 minute.
All right. Best behavior, huh?
Yeah. conversations because all these mics.
I know.
That's right.
All right. Mr. Martinson, can you hear us?
I can, and you can hear me?
Yes, you're coming quite well, actually.
Excellent.
Great. Well, were you on? Could you hear when we went through our round of introductions of committee members?
I was and I could, thank you.
All right, so we won't go through that again. Instead, we'll just head right into our interview with you. I'm going to offer you an opportunity to provide opening remarks before we ask questions that we've shared with you previously as well.
Thank you, Chair Moore. First of all, let me say thank you to everyone for the flexibility in allowing me to do my interview with you this evening remotely as opposed to in person. Having contracted COVID for the first time Tuesday, I am very grateful that the flexibility is being extended to me to allow this interview to happen at all. So thank you for that. I guess I would like to note, since other interviewees have also noted these things. So I am from Minnesota originally. I was born in Minneapolis. My parents lived in the 3300 block of Stevens, right as 35W was being pushed through. And I've seen pictures from the brown field that existed before the trench was dug there. We did not live here long. My folks got transferred to Richmond, Virginia, and then Springfield, Virginia. And then we moved back here to Fridley, where I spent most of my childhood growing up in an inner ring suburb. Moved away to grad school in Madison, Wisconsin, met my wife, spent a bunch of years there, a little time in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and then moved back to St. Paul, where we said, this is home, this is where we want to be. So that's my regional background. But I also would like to note that that I am an unabashed believer in the power of regionalism as an organizing concept. And there's a lot of dynamics in our metropolitan region that have been quite favorable. It is, I would say, it is the only metropolitan region that I would consider living in this country at this point. And at the same time, there's a lot of dynamics that have played out over many decades and continue to, that tend to focus social needs and poverty in the core cities and in the inner ring suburbs, and tend to flow resources to certain favored exurbs and outer ring suburbs. And so I think that those are issues that really local government at either the municipal level or the county level is not well placed to deal with. And without having to take things to a state level, I think that one of the beautiful things about the Met Council is the potential that it has to address things in a truly regional way for the betterment of the entire region. This has been a focus of my attention since I first got exposed to it by Myron Northfield in his book Metropolitics back in the early 2000s. And with that, I will say thank you for letting me come and speak to you tonight.
Great. Thanks for the intro. And you've lived in different parts of the metro area as well, you've demonstrated. We'll start with our first question.
Yes, good evening. The first question would be, what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Yeah, so as identified in the 2050 Regional Development Guide, in order to achieve public health, safety, and well-being, which is one of the overarching goals, and climate sustainability goals, we need cost-effective and equitable transportation alternatives. We need safe and affordable housing choices throughout the region, and our region must have effective and reliable transit, ride-sharing, and non-motorized transportation systems. The transportation system that we have is currently one of the largest contributors to climate disruption through creation of greenhouse gases and damaging to public health through the production of particulate matter 2.5, roadway fatalities, and serious injuries. Met Council, I believe, should be setting VMT reduction goals and identifying effective interventions to move towards them, such as MnDOT has. Well, they've at least set goals. Reducing distances that people need to travel in the region to get from home to work and elsewhere has to be part of the larger strategy for reducing VMT in the region. So transportation and land use and housing and jobs are interconnected in ways that can't be separated. So this requires increased land use density, particularly in residential forms. Targets for reducing roadway fatalities and serious injuries go unmet in our region year after year, and rates for vulnerable road users are increasing faster than those for vehicle drivers and occupants. Our transportation system currently reflects and reinforces past inequities in race, ethnicity, class, sex, and other dimensions, with the affluent and drivers in particular typically being most favored. For the good of our region, the transportation system needs reform to better serve our entire community. I would like to see the Met Council fully adopt and apply the safe systems approach in transportation planning that's being promulgated by the Federal Highway Administration. Among the many benefits of this approach, it explicitly incorporates kinetic energy potential as a key variable needing consideration in transportation planning. Separating transportation modes by kinetic energy potential is a common practice elsewhere in the world, and it should be more widely adopted here. So transportation and transportation safety are really the foci that I would want to put most of my attention in, and some of the things I'll say in response to the other questions will probably help you to understand where I'm coming from with that.
Thank you. The second question is, council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Thank you. So I've served as the non-motorized representative on the Met Council Transportation Advisory Board for the past several years, initially as an alternate and this past year as a full member. I would remain on the tab in that capacity as that work dovetails well with other Met Council work. Engaging with members of that body provides opportunities for public engagement with elected leaders throughout the region. I would plan also to liaise with leaders of justice-oriented local organizations, such as Isaiah and Micah, and environmental justice leaders and entities such as the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, Fresh Energy, Minnesota 350, and the Sierra Club. I would also continue participating with Active Living Ramsey Communities, which is currently co-chaired by Ramsey County Commissioner Mary Jo McGuire and Met Council Commissioner Peter Lindstrom. While I realize I wouldn't be able to replace Chris Fredson's labor connections on the council, big shoes to fill, in my personal network, I do count a number of labor leaders, some of whom work with SEIU, some at NLRB, some who are shop stewards in recently organized retail settings and local government. I would also spend time meeting with Met Council operations staff to increase my depth of knowledge about the organization and its operations, as I think that would be a very important part of being on the council. Also, I learned recently that Mayor Carter of St. Paul will be appointing me to the St. Paul Planning Commission. And I realized that should I be appointed to the Met Council, I would have to step down from that role. Nonetheless, there are a number of folks who serve on the Planning Commission who I would look to as part of my additional outreach efforts, including, as well as others on both City Council and among Ramsey County Commissioners. I recently left my employment with Health Partners Institute after having worked there for 24 years as a health services researcher. And I'm currently employed about a half day a week in research at the Minneapolis VA and about 35 hours a month in consulting work that I do with the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Should I be appointed to the Met Council, I intend to commit the rest of my working hours to engagement and the duties expected of council members.
And now for the third question. What have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you've worked with?
Thank you. As a sociologist and a demographer, I was sort of surprised to see Brian Harrison here as a political scientist. I didn't really expect any other PhD people to be in this discussion, but it was very interesting to hear his discussion, and I'm really looking forward to meeting him at some point. As a sociologist and a demographer, understanding the structural sources of inequities, including their layering and their intersectionality, was integral to my professional training, and it's a primary lens through which I view and engage with most aspects of the world in my professional work and in my public life. As a researcher, I also place a premium on data and evidence-based decision-making. So I want to give you one example from my professional work, and then I'll give you another example from outside of that context. So before leaving Health Partners, I co-led a large research project studying cardiometabolic risks in the local Somali community and how they were related to social capital and social networks among Somalis. This is an area of health that hadn't been much examined previously, and we were very excited about this project. As part of that work, we brought several leaders in the Somali community directly onto the research team in paid roles with the people who had obtained the funding from the National Institutes of Health. Those people included Dr. Farhir Farah, who was a key liaison with the community as well as being project manager with us, as was Dr. Osman Ahmed, who's known in the community as Harare, and Doug Price at Hennepin Health, and Osman Ahmed. All these people were important in helping us identify other leaders in the Somali community, who we then created a panel with, and we engaged them as paid advisors to us. And we met every 6 months with them, and they advised us on every aspect of what we were doing, from the beginning of the project, through measurement, through recruitment, through data work, through dissemination of the results in the community. And we met with them every 6 months, and we provided food in that context to make it a more community-like setting. From Afro Deli was our caterer for that work, which seemed to be appreciated by the participants. Working with these leaders, we hired Somali healthcare workers for the primary community engagement and for the data collection. And then we worked with the local Somali TV. Oh, I'm sorry.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. So we work with local Somali TV and radio station to develop messaging to the community. Through that work, we built trust with many in the community and helped to raise awareness of the increasing cardiometabolic risks within certain segments of the community. One of the key lessons for me from that work was the importance of authentic and meaningful engagement with members of a community for the success of any project that is about a community. And I would bring that to what I would do on the council. So my second example is just to note that for the past 15 years, my primary modes of transportation have been biking and transit. Every day I get up on my bike or every day I take transit, I'm a role model. And I bring an equity lens to my work on TAB, and before that to my service as chair of the Transportation Committee of my local district council. I consider transportation equity one of the primary goals, and much of my public advocacy to date has been focused on working towards our developing a regional transportation system, providing genuine transportation options for everyone in our region.
1 minute left.
That's it. I'm done.
Oh, perfect timing. Well, members, do you have any questions? Great. Well, you have some additional time to leave us with closing remarks. Please feel free to.
So I feel honored to have had the opportunity to interview for this position. I have been long interested in the Met Council, and this was an unexpected opportunity that this seat was opening up that I learned of through conversations that I had with people on TAB, in fact. And I thought, this is not something that I would ever do. And then I thought, actually, you know what? Maybe this is something I would do. And the thought of actually being able to engage with other members of the Met Council and other members of the community in a context of true regionalism was something that I found so exciting that I thought this would be a great way for me to be spending my time and my privilege as someone who is obviously I enjoy all the privileges of being a white middle-class male. I could use that privilege to further my own benefit, but I would much prefer that I use those privileges in a way that actually improves the entire region for everybody. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Martinson. Thanks for your interest as well. All right. We've completed our interviews for District 14. And if candidates are in the room for District 5, we will begin the interview process for that district. So on the list, we have Bradley, Dakane, Pavia, and Peterson. Are you all here? All right, we have Bradley. I can't see even with my glasses on, apparently. So if Bradley is here, we can go ahead and get started about 5 minutes early, if that's okay with you. And we'd like to begin each district interview with introductions so that you know who is on the nominating committee as well. And we'll start with that, proceed with our questions that we have for you, give you a chance to introduce yourself, obviously. And so I will begin. I'm Fatima Moore, and it's good to see you here. Start on the right.
David Dively.
Molly Cummings.
Paul Gardner.
Mohammed Ali Noor.
Heidi Garrido.
Janet Williams.
Sam Rockwell.
Bradley Titus.
Adriana Jarrett.
I'm Charlie Zelli. I'm here in ex officio status as chair of the Met Council.
Jim Erickson.
Melissa Manderscheid.
All right. Various members will ask you the questions that we sent to you in advance as well. Before we do that, though, please say your full name, spell your last, and share any pronouns you'd like to use.
Yes, my name is Husniyah Bradley, Bradley, and I use she, her, hers pronouns.
Thank you. And please provide an opening statement if you would like before we begin our questions.
Yes, because I heard some of the other opening statements. So, my name is Husniyah. I was raised in South Minneapolis on 43rd in Chicago. I went to public schools in that area, and then I graduated from North High School in Minneapolis. And I've also lived in St. Louis Park, and I currently live in Richfield, and have traveled all around like the metro area. To Plymouth and other areas like where I worked, and that gave me a certain view of the different transportation options and transportation around the Twin Cities, and that's why I've been involved particularly in that area. I went to college in Atlanta, Georgia at Spelman College and graduated there, came back, worked as a chemist for about 4 or 5 years, and then also started at school part-time at William Mitchell and graduated there with a JD, and then worked as a lawyer for a while and did a lot of organizing and activist work in voter registration and also voter protection for the last several years.
Thank you. We'll start with our questions.
Good evening. The first question will be, what policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
So all of the issues, like and all the responsibilities of the Met Council are very important to the progress that the state needs to make in housing, parks, wastewater, and transportation. And I am specifically most interested in addressing transportation, planning, and funding opportunities and policy concerning those, because transportation is an important part of everyone's life that lives in the state of Minnesota and around. People need transportation to go to school, work, doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and other things like that. And I think that it's an important time to be involved with that as we plan for the 2040 in transportation plan. And I want to be a part of that. And that's so I'm currently like involved with our local transportation commission, and I've been the chair of that for the last year. And then also on the TAB Transportation Advisory Board, and with my involvement with that, and also the EPG, which is the Equity Policy Group, as the co-chair, I bring a wealth of knowledge from attending those meetings and meeting different stakeholders in that area.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Yes, as a council member, I reach out to the local transportation commissions and also housing commissions, and I've also sat on the Human Rights Commission previously and other groups to relate to what I'm assigned to work on. And I would attend community forums and events, talk with people in charge of initiatives like the Sweet Streets that we have going on locally in our area, and local policy groups that are gathering around different events to bring forward community-based solutions to particular issues. I would reach out and engage with the leaders in my district, so both on the city council and also like my county commissioner and other stakeholders to get their opinions on upcoming policy discussions or issues. I would also make sure that the information gets to various media outlets. So in that area in Richfield, Bloomington, Eden Prairie, we have like the Sun Current and other things that people kind of keep tabs on. And so I would want to get some of the information out to them, especially when we're holding public meetings or discussions about issues. And currently, there's different groups that are gathering to discuss particular issues, and they would provide their results to city officials or other groups that are working on those issues. And I would want to get their input as well. And also, like if there's different things going on, so I know in the past, like council members have had to go talk to metro writers if a business is having an issue where they want to move a metro line or a metro stop, and going to talk to those writers to get their opinions of moving that stop or changing the location or changing the timing is very valuable, and it's informative, and it'll let the council know that, no, we should keep that stop and keep, that location and not go with kind of like the complaints and the things that the business owners are bringing. And so I know how to balance the information that I'm given both by residents and businesses in order to come out with a good outcome for both involved.
What have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or or an organization that you've worked with?
Well, as the current chair of the Richfield Transportation Commission, I have advanced equity by speaking up during planning meetings around major projects to make sure that they are taking into consideration the equitable parts of it. For example, we had several discussions about the 77th Street underpass and the 494 project that has been ongoing for 30 years. And I pointed out several things, especially including having no access to residents on either side of 494 if they took down the bridges over Portland or Nicollet. And I guess the reaction to that, they went back, took the information back, and decided to do an equity study of the area because on that part of 494, like there's a lot of apartment buildings, and we also have a building with assisted living and people that have different disabilities, and a lot of those residents will travel to go to Walmart and other places to shop, and that would cut them off from doing that. And so I provided some feedback on that project that helped it move forward in a different way to provide for a temporary bridge in the middle of the highway and things like that, that would help with the equity. I also have worked to advance equity with the Richfield Foundation, and I've been the chair of that for the last couple of years, and I helped them continue to shape the grant-making process and other opportunities to include more of the demographic of people in the community that we are trying to reach. And so every year, they have been able, and COVID was a little off with the amount that they were able to raise, but every year they've been able to give out $20,000 to $25,000 to about 20 different groups. Some groups are asking for $500, $2,000, and other amounts, and making sure that it's distributed like equitably and that it's targeting the population that we're looking for. So like if it's free dental services for kids from low income, or it's, one group was looking for snowboarding material, and then somebody else was looking for instruments that they need to play. So like just making sure that we're reaching who we say like our mission is for, and making sure that it's reaching people equitably. I've also helped out with Open Streets and the Pin Fest that comes to our local area. And that's also another way to do outreach and to reach other people and other ideas. But just in helping come up with a mix of like opportunities, of entertainment and other things, and then also making sure that there's enough area, that every area is accessible for those in wheelchairs and other mobile units. But yes, I've done a lot to advance equity in that realm, and then also at work, because I work at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, and I've done a lot of equity work around things that we might get from students. Like we had a list of demands that came to the new dean, and just working to make sure that their voices are included in the decisions that faculty and staff are making, in helping to integrate a new standard that's coming down from the American Bar Association on equity, having to do with anti-bias, anti-racist, and cultural competency. So working with faculty members to come up with a new outcome that can be used in the classrooms.
Great, thank you. Members, any questions? Not seeing any. Please feel free to provide closing remarks to us as well.
Yes, it's definitely been an honor to be asked to interview for this position, and definitely with the knowledge and experience that I've had over the years, I know that I would be, I guess, excited to be able to serve the community in this way with being on the Met Council. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Is Dakane here? I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Yes? Dakane? Yes, please proceed. Please approach the table. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Feel free to grab some water if you need to before we begin. While you grab your water, we'll ask you to please introduce yourself to the committee. Say your full name, spell your last, and then provide gender pronouns that you prefer to use if needed.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. My first name is Ukasha, and my last name is Dakane, D as in David, A as in Apple, K as in Kite, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, E as in Echo. And I am the executive director of a local nonprofit called Freyo, which works with underserved communities.
Great. You're more than welcome to provide an opening statement to us, and then after that, we'll proceed to the prepared questions that we have for you.
Yeah, as Maya Angelou will always say, I'm here as a 10,000 voices today. I am here as a voice to represent those who have been underserved for the longest time, whose decision and voices never make to tables like this. So today, I'll talk on my personal background and my effort to bring people together for greater policies. And also as a young person, a millennial who never get these opportunities, I am so thankful again to be here in this space today. Any questions are welcome. I'm excited.
Great, thank you. We'll start with the questions.
Good evening. The first question would be, what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Yeah, so the most policies that I am currently interested, number one is environmental policies. Climate change is real and it's happening in our backyards. It's the time for us to say enough is enough and make a possible change. So those policies are the policies that I'm interested. The second policy I am interested is public safety. And the reason climate change is important to me is that I am a young person, a climate champion, an advocate for a zero waste. In my work, one thing I've done is I've brought together communities to talk about climate change. Who is impacted disproportionately? Who is the person who is impacted in health-wise in climate change. So in Minneapolis, we have seen the impact the incinerators has in our communities. How is it impacting the well-being of many people? There's a women group that I've put together who have been sewing the tote bags to be an alternative for the single-use plastic bags that have been creating, like a waste to the landfill. So I've worked with Hennepin County in the efforts of reducing the waste that goes into our community, whether it's a food waste or the single-use plastic bags waste. So as someone who is an immigrant to this country, and also as somebody who have seen those people who have been disproportionately impacted, COVID has shown a light on those injustices and inequities that are existing in terms of climate. My community are from refugee camps. They have seen the effects of the climate change firsthand. They have seen the pain it caused them, even living in refugee camps. When they came to Minnesota, they said enough is enough. We want to make a solution to those kind of problems. They never get any space in those tables where we talk about climate justice and climate solution. So I created a pathway for them to integrate ideas and come together to bring a solution that will leave a remarkable solution for the younger generation to enjoy. So public safety, it's a problem that's existing right now in our current space. I am interested in that. There's so many young people we have lost in gun violence. There's so many people that we never spoke for. So I brought young people together for a program called Peace Ambassadors. So we did it at the Y, where the young people will take the leadership and speak into the effect of gun violence, and also speak to stakeholders on a sensible gun laws and how we can protect our communities for a safer communities. I've spoken to many mothers who have lost their children due to gun violence. And as I started with my open statement, I'm interested in those policies because I stand as a 10,000, because I carry their voices. When I listen to them, they need a solution. How can we come up with those solutions? That is what promoted me to be here today. That is the force that brings me here today. And that's how I am interested in those policies. So right now we partnered with the Minneapolis Public Schools for the Youth Peace Ambassadors Program. This is where we bring solutions in schools, which is like equipping the young people with social emotional support and ways they can create a non-violent communities, which is like good for them and for the teachers as well. So public safety and school safety are really problems that needs our time and efforts and energy right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that I'm already doing right now. So the things that I will commit to do is I'll create a bridge for those people who have been challenged and who have seen a communication barriers to reach with stakeholders, to reach with those people who are making decisions on their behalfs. So one thing I've done and I'm doing right now is that I created a collaborative community effort called Southside Communities Coalition, which is a community-led coalition that will bring communities together, and then they will have an interest on issues that matters to them. So public safety, climate issues, environmental issues, economic and workforce development pathways. They will come together, talk on those issues. On those specific issues, we have committees. We have a business development committees. We have economic development committees. We have youth development committees. So all those committees will converse, and then every month we will meet in South Minneapolis or in somewhere in City 5. So we will talk about those issues. Who do we want to invite? Who can we invite to bring to the table so that we can talk to our issues? My community have been faced by many inequities, language, transportation, so many other problems. So the way I decided to improve their communication to stakeholders is to create an easy access to the stakeholders themselves. Like this is where we have a tea and talk in an informal setting where we'll just sit down and then talk about issues that are existing in our community. We'll make sure their voices are heard. On February 10th, we're having a big community event that we organized, which is designed for stakeholders. It's a roundtable breakfast. These are events that never happened for people who are working class. So sitting on a circle, enjoying a breakfast with them, trying to hear what they need, the issues that are, like presenting in front of them is a milestone for me. So the other way I can engage also is to, the world is right now going towards social media. So what is the council presence in social media? So we need to use those tools to bring communities together. Younger generation, my age and younger, my age and younger needs to see the issues that are concerning them in social media, like ways they can debate it. The other thing is I created a pathway for the older people, the elders, and the younger people to understand each other. So every Thursdays at the Y, the younger people will communicate with the members of the community about ways they can improve this public safety. So the peace ambassadors, who are the ambassadors for peace, will talk on those issues to their own parents, to their own elders. So in that way of communication, it bridges the problem. So if I get the chance to be appointed to the council, I will enhance and I'll make sure I used those communication strategies that I've already laid out to be a mean for the council to communicate.
For question 3, quickly, what have you done to advance equity in the district, community, or an organization you've been involved with?
That's a great question. Equity, it's a chance to give people to be on the table, to listen to them, to hear their voices, to hear their struggles, to understand their journey. Personally, as a leader of a nonprofit that have worked tirelessly on a grassroots level, I have created a pathway to prosperity for many East African families, 460 people this year who found a livable wage employment. Some of them went to a non-traditional jobs that they never did, construction, to name a few. So creating an equity just is as simple of us listening to people. As somebody who have created small circles and pathways to hear them, I heard so many issues, so many concerning things that the community need. I also created equity by being an advocate for them in spaces that they never be. Right now, I'm serving on Lake Street Redevelopment Committee.
Mr. Dakane, please try to close up your statement as your time is up as well.
Okay. Yes, so I serve on a Lake Street Redevelopment Committee, which gives them an opportunity to bring their voices in there.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your interest in serving on the council, and have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Pavia, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly, and if I'm not, please feel free to correct me.
Chance to introduce myself, so
Well.
I like that. Just a little water if I can.
All right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last, and then sharing your gender pronouns if you prefer.
Certainly. My name is Brent Pavia. At least that's how my part of the family pronounces it, but there are Pavias out
It's
there.
all
There's
good.
probably Pavias as well. P-A-V-I-A. Actually, I like the P as in Peter, A as in apple, but I don't. And my pronouns are he, him, and his.
Wonderful. Feel free to provide an opening statement before we head into questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your service on the nominating committee. I am grateful to have the opportunity today, and I appreciate your time and energy in this really essential work. As far as me and answering these questions. I'm sure there'll be a mix of personal and professional as we talk about the three questions. I have, as some people have mentioned, I'm not a native Minnesotan, as my spouse reminds me all the time. I never will be because of that. But the vast majority of my life I've spent living and working in Minnesota. The vast majority of it in District 5. In fact, I think I put in my application, at some point I've lived in all of the cities within District 5, with the exception of the airport, although sometimes, some days have seemed like that. I'm sure you could all relate to that. I've lived in Richfield now for about 25 years.
Great, thank you. We'll start with our first question.
Good evening. First question is, what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Thank you, Committee Member Alanur. The work of the Metropolitan Council, all of it is essential. It's really hard to choose, as some other nominees have mentioned. But I would place transportation in general as my primary focus, in particular around transportation policy, the ability to strengthen the region's transportation system to support the current and future vitality and prosperity of the Twin Cities region and the state of Minnesota. And I would add, and I assume this is implied, for everyone. And I think that the reason for that is it's central to my wheelhouse, no pun intended. The last decade or so, working with the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, transit and transportation, advocating for multimodal transportation is core to the work that I was involved in, initially membership and then community and economic development, and then leading the Bloomington Chamber affiliate of that work. When I first started, Chair Zelli was on our board and was plucked from us by Governor Dayton to run something called MnDOT for a while, and working with him through that, and then on the Met Council. And congratulations on your reappointment, by the way. It's just core to the work that I've been involved in, and understanding that it also transcends so many of the other pieces of the policy work. You know, they're all interconnected, and they have a great deal to do with each other. And I think the kind of the goals that are elicited in the Thrive MSP 2040 plan and future planning that goes along, those objectives around, I wrote it down so I would get them all right: stewardship, prosperity, equity, livability, and sustainability are just are right on, are central. I mean, and I'm sure with the pandemic and other things, you know, you have to look at, you know, implementation and organization, but that's a part of the wonky work that I really like doing, that really does affect everybody, whether they realize it or not. And so I'm not going to, you know, spend a whole lot of time trying to convince you that already know all of this, but there's also a very personal aspect to the transportation piece, because I'm a huge advocate for the multimodal. As I mentioned, you know, I'm a big transit user. It gets a lot worse press than it deserves. Although a decade or so ago, I remember a meeting, then our board chair and others throughout the community on the Green Line extension and working on that then. So some of these things do take a long time, and they're incremental, and it may be frustrating in terms of, you know, people who want to get things done right away. Some things just take a long time for that planning, and it can be incremental, but it's essential work. And there's a lot of gratification in that, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And just the transformations over time, you know, in my working life. I mean, when I first started, early part of my career was in hospitality management. I actually lived downtown Minneapolis. I worked at the 494 Strip, which was kind of a hot spot back then, and I think there's some re-engagement as well now. But at that time, if I didn't have,
taking transit, I had to have somebody get me over the Minneapolis line, over Crosstown, to be able to take a bus back home. I couldn't get there. Now, it's a totally different world. So kudos to the Metropolitan Council and others who've worked so diligently. Same with biking. It's amazing. So, but the work continues. It never changes.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you, Committee Member Garrido. Not to be immodest, but this has been the main aspect of the roles that I've had in various jobs for years now. I was heartened to hear the previous nominee talking about work with YMCAs before I joined the chamber. I worked with YMCAs throughout the region and helped with the merge between the Minneapolis Ys and the St. Paul Ys. But a lot of outreach in terms of engaging in those community service areas for whatever particular branch we were working at, Southdale Y, which serves a lot of the Edina, Richfield, Bloomington area, and understanding that piece. The outreach involved at the chamber is central to the roles that I had as well. And I think that if I were fortunate enough to become the District 5 representative for the Metropolitan Council, there's the core cities and understanding those leaders there, the elected officials, city council, city staff, and I used to do a lot of that work with the chamber, organizing quarterly city manager meetings for our geography. And the cities are the prime constituencies of the Met Council, and those relationships are important. And I think that having those communications are essential. But as others have said, and I've really believed, it's expanding that tent. So yes, the business advocacy organizations like the chambers, transportation management organizations, essential to be involved in conversations with, service organizations, community organizations, and being intentional about bringing as many people to the table as possible. And then, not being a millennial, maybe that's obvious, I do agree in terms of communication and social media essential. I think that one of the current council members I'm connected with very well, District 1's Judy Johnson, does a great job of communicating via Twitter and LinkedIn, and I would be responsive to that as well.
Thank you. Now we're going to talk about equity. So can you tell me what you've done in advance to advance equity in your district, community, or any organization that you've been involved in?
Yeah. Thank you, Committee Member Williams. The equity, well, it's central to me personally, professionally, but I'm also really glad to know that it's central to the work of the Metropolitan Council. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I have interest in this work. And just personally, early on, one of my subfields of graduate work was in peace studies and conflict resolution. As that's evolved, you have to continue the education. And so I've availed myself of opportunities, Equity Works Leadership Institute, Courageous Conversations through the Pacific Education Group, but then putting it into practice, making sure in the workplace that we're doing the work and we're attentive to, making equity central to what we're doing. And it's not always, about me. In Bloomington, we engaged in the Royal We, a large community-based strategic planning session called Bloomington Together Tomorrow. A lot of work, but it was important to get as many voices at the table as possible. So central to what I believe in, and what, if I'm fortunate enough to be on the council, to continue that work as informing everything that I do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Pavia. We've unfortunately run out of time, and I appreciate your interest.
Thank you very much.
Peterson, please approach the table. Feel free to grab some water if you'd like. All right, well, welcome. Please introduce yourself by stating your full name, spelling your last, and sharing your gender pronouns if you'd like.
My full name is Laususunga Leatawa Dr. Robert John Peterson. I don't expect anyone to remember all of that, but that is my full name. My last name is spelled Peterson, and my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Also, feel free to provide an opening statement before we go into questions.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Faftai, Talofa Lava, greetings. It's nice to be here tonight with each of you, and I appreciate your time. My name is John. I go by a couple different names depending on where I find myself geographically. I was born in Western Samoa. I came to the United States when I was about 18 months old. I grew up in West Central Wisconsin and went to the University of Wisconsin River Falls, graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Secondary Education. I am a teacher by trade, an educator, and that's one of the reasons why I applied for this position. I feel education is incredibly important in terms of the health of the metro. I've lived in the Twin Cities since 1999, both in St. Paul and in Minneapolis. I currently live in Richfield with my wife and my 2 children, and I've been there since 2010. I have a master's degree in public policy and leadership from the University of St. Thomas, and I have a doctorate in leadership, educational leadership from the University of St. Thomas as well. I'm a strong advocate for racial justice, political justice, and socioeconomic justice. It's been a core part of my identity for at least the last 15 years, and it has been a core feature of how I do my work in terms of equity work, whether I'm working for a local school district like Minneapolis or St. Paul Public Schools, whether I'm working with a nonprofit or a family foundation through my business. Lastly, I'm a small business owner. I have 2 businesses, and I'm proud to say that I have been DBE certified since 2012 by the Met Council, and I recertify every single year because I think it's an incredibly important aspect of being a minority-owned business owner. So thank you for having me tonight, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Great, thank you. We'll start with our first question.
Good evening. The first question will be, what policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
I think it's fair to say you can make a strong argument for every single policy area being equally important to the council and the health of the metropolitan area and region. For me, though, as an educator, housing is easily the most important piece. And I say that because as a former teacher, assistant principal, principal, director, and executive director, I can see the impacts that housing security can have on academic achievement for young people and how that has an impact on their post-secondary aspirations, whether it's college and or career. On the flip side, housing insecurity and the disparate outcomes that are associated with housing insecurity that are felt through employment, through transportation, through access to things like regional parks and lakes and the water system, it can have a tremendous impact. And I'll give you a quick little anecdote. I first became an assistant principal in 2011 at Minneapolis Edison High School in Northeast Minneapolis. Love the Tommies. I'm a Tommy through and through. Most of the students that attended Edison at that time were from North Minneapolis, and a good chunk of those students had been negatively impacted by the windstorm and the tornado that went through North Minneapolis in 2010. And so I can say definitively there were disparate outcomes that children felt in terms of their education as a result of housing insecurity, whether it was having to couch hop every 2 weeks, or whether it was living in a trap house, or whether it was being homeless, living out of a car. I think housing insecurity is quite possibly one of the most important issues facing this country, and particularly in the Twin Cities. And that's an area that I'm particularly passionate about because it has such a strong impact on young people. Housing is something that impacts every age group, whether you are part of the elderly or whether you're part of the youngest of the young. Having solid housing policy and having options that are affordable for people is incredibly important to me.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
I've had a fair amount of success doing monthly network meetings that are representative of the broad diversity of stakeholders within a particular area, whether it's a municipality, a region, and/or the state. And I say broad diversity because I'm talking race, sexual orientation, class, gender, culture, language, all of the different attributes that we show up in the space as. So monthly network meetings would be, I think, incredibly important to do on a regular basis. I also like to inform network meetings that I've had in the past and that I've conducted with some data and some information to help feed that system and feed those conversations. I'm trained as an ethnographer, I'm a published author, and I've conducted research across the state and across the country, actually, asking people questions about what the problems are that they face in their community. What are the things they've tried to address those problems? Have any of those attempts been promising? What are the solutions that they think need to be applied? I really believe it's important that when you talk with community that you engage with them in community and in relationship. And so asking those questions to help inform a monthly network meeting is something that I would implement immediately. I also think it's important to bring together the broader group of folks. I don't know if it would be a convening, but some sort of an event that would bring people together at least once a year from the multiple cities and municipalities that are represented by District 5 is something that I would commit to doing. And then lastly, as other folks have mentioned, social media. Social media is such an incredible platform for communicating, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. As a business owner, I do have a YouTube channel. I'm also licensed as a realtor, and so you kind of have to do social media when you get into that field. But I would definitely use social media as a means to keep connected with people on a regular basis. So just kind of reviewing, I think I would first want to do some probably one-to-one conversations with people. Meet obviously with small business owners and associations. Meet with city council members, folks from the school districts, which I have some relationships with currently. A monthly network meeting, and then quite possibly some sort of a regional annual event that would bring people together. I think part of the job is bringing data and information back to the council to help inform decision-making that happens at the metropolitan, multiple county level. And so that would be kind of the benefits, I think, of doing that sort of engagement.
Thank you. So what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or in an organization that you're involved with?
I've been blessed with many opportunities to work on equity, and more specifically, race equity. I would say I probably started doing the work of equity when I was a teacher. I taught middle schoolers, and so there's a lot of opportunities to apply equity in a middle school classroom. But I would say definitely when I was leading federal programs in Minneapolis public schools, entitlement programs, Title I, Title II, Title III. When I was over in St. Paul Public Schools, I led the Office of College and Career Readiness, and one of the tasks we had was to establish a strategic plan that was racially equitable. And at the time, it was $60 million in programs, schools, and services. So weaving racial equity and equity generally writ large into that plan was something that I did. I work up at the Capitol, and so I do draft legislation in partnership with folks. I don't chief author because I'm not a legislator, but I am up there working on behalf of different nonprofits, putting together policies that help to lower the disparate outcomes we see based on race and gender and class in the state. And I've also done some writing, policy briefs, reports, things of that nature that have focused on race equity. One of my main clients for my business is the Minnesota Education Equity Partnership. And so their mission is advancing race equity and excellence in education. So
Thank
had
you.
a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
Members, any follow-up questions or? No? All right. Please feel free to leave us with closing comments.
Sure. Race equity is a condition that is as yet unrealized in the metropolitan region and in the state of Minnesota. I do believe we are well positioned here to get to a new condition of race equity, in which people are empowered based on their race, their class, their gender, their sexual orientation. How we get there is by shifting the conditions of systems, whether it's policies, practices, resource flows, relationships, mental models. One of the things that I would bring to the council is a background in doing that. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and just really thank you for your time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you.
And that ends our District 5 interviews. I'm going to pause for a moment and see if we're in agreement that we can take a little break before our next interview of District 6. Yeah? All right, we'll take a short break. Awesome. Thank you.
Stand up and stretch.
Yes. All right, we will start our interview process again for the Met Council. Starting now with District 6. On deck, we'll have Pacheco, Plan, and Thomas. Pacheco, if you're here, please approach the table. Thank you for your interest in sitting on the Met Council. Before we go into our questions that we have for you, we want to make sure that you know who we are as well. We will proceed with a round of introductions and then give you some steps on what to expect next as well. I am Fatima Moore, and welcome. We'll start on my far right with introductions.
Scabio.
David Dively.
Molly Cummings.
Paul Gardner.
Mohammed Ali Noor.
Heidi Garrido.
Janet Williams.
Sam Rockwell.
Bradley Titus.
Adriana Jareb.
I'm Charlie Zelli, and I'm here on an ex officio basis as chair of the Met Council.
Jim Erickson.
Melissa Manderscheid.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Pacheco, thank you. Please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last, and sharing your pronouns if you would like.
My name is John Pacheco. I live in South Minneapolis, and it's probably, I don't use pronouns much, Mr. How's that?
Great. Would you like to spell your last name for us?
Yes, it's P as in Paul, Acheco.
Wonderful, thank you.
And that may be junior on the end. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So if you see it in front of you.
All right. Various members will ask you the prepared questions that we send to you in advance. Before we do that, though, would you like to offer an opening statement?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee here. Yeah, as a lot of the folks previous stated, background-wise, I was born and raised here in Minneapolis. I grew up here. My mother and father were born and raised here. So my grandparents got here from Mexico in the early 1920s. And so we've been here about 100 years. Mother just lived up the street here, and my father in South Minneapolis. I went to South, my brother and sister went to South. I went to Minneapolis Vocational, which was downtown. It was a trade school, the last trade school in Minneapolis here. But I will tell you that my being here is more about the public service. I'm always committed to public service. I encourage everybody to sit at least one board. One board, that's all I ask you. And people I work with, and I'm always encouraged. Matter of fact, I found this opening looking through for a friend, and it said this. The previous opening was, I'll back up again. I'm a current Met Council member, but I was just parted in March. I'm fulfilling a term. So I haven't been here that long, and I found that position by looking through the Secretary of State's office, looking for a position for a friend. And it took me back because I was on the Met Council. I was a Governor Rudy Perpich appointment in 1991, I think it's too, so like 30 years ago. So it was a different Met Council. It didn't have transit, mostly waste, and we deal with housing and municipal lines and other things that were kind of still exciting then. And so I knew what the Met Council was, and I thought this was something I should look into, and sure enough, I found it very interesting and something that I would want to pursue. And again, I do this because I do public service, and over the years, I've sat on the Hennepin County Library Board. I was the Governor's Task Force on Juvenile Justice. I was on the first civilian review panel in the 70s, police review panel. I was 10 years as vice chair of the Metropolitan Sports Facility Commission, and probably another few boards in there on the way. And so again, why I'm here today and what I'm seeking this reappointment or to this position here is about staying involved and continuing the public service.
Great, thank you. We'll proceed with our first question.
Good evening. What policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing, and why?
Well, I tell you, if you had asked me that in March when the last time I interviewed, I would say equity, transportation. But right now, I will tell you, I think it's safety. I mean, there isn't a day goes by that we don't read something or see something, or within our work at the Met Council, someone doesn't call and say, you know, I had this experience on the train. And I'm a user of transportation. My mother and father never drove a car. I have 3 brothers, 3 sisters. We took a bus. If we couldn't get out on the bus because the cabs couldn't take us, there were too many of us, And so my whole life, I've been using public transportation, and I've come from the airport downtown, and it's a tough ride at times on the train. And I've been to the bus stops on Lake Street. And so working with the Met Council, and they responded rather quickly of putting a plan together, but now we got to implement it. And now we got to take a look and see what is the next step. We just hired a new police officer, police chief. And everyone around us is hiring new chiefs. We're all looking at how we can address this, but it's not just the actions. It's mental health issues. It's drug abuse. It's lack of housing. It's everything that we do. It's equity. But I would tell you that first and foremost, I think I'm most interested right now. I'm on the Transportation Committee, and again, like I said, I'm committed to the transportation. I think it's something that we do best. We have a great staff. We are still working to fulfill this system, this great regional system that we've embarked on so many years ago. And so I'm still addressing, I'll talk a little bit more on the equity questions in some of the time. But I think those are the basically three: the safety, equity, and transportation would be what I would be focusing on. And I'm on each one of those committees now, so I think it's consistent with what I want to do.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Well, it's been my experience. You kind of bait and switch. It could be 20, 40 hours a week, but it's kind of, I see it says monthly here, but no, because it does take a lot more time. It really does. And so where I'm committed to right now is working with the light rail expansion we have both in the blue line and green line. So from where you're sitting now, how do we get out to Brooklyn Center and all those cities in between, Crystal, Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Park? And so what brings us there and how we're going to implement that, how we're working with the community to get that done. And then we have a great anti-displacement team. We got a great designers. We got people looking right now, but there's a lot of meetings around that. And then if you go out to the Green Line, heading out to Eden Prairie, Golden Valley, St. Louis Park, and others, and they're all engaged. And that's the beauty of what we do, is we engage folks. And I don't care if we're talking about a $100 million effort or hundreds of $1 million through a tunnel, or the 4 trees that you're going to miss in front of my office or front of my family's home, but the people are just as passionate. And so they show up every day, and you need to show up and talk to them. You need to show up and show that you're interested in. Fortunately, like I said, my district has 2 of these main new expansions coming online, and plus the E-line. And I'm telling you what, I'm reading every day and learning more from the staff and learning more from the community, meeting with the council members. We have monthly meetings with each of the mayors of these communities and how it's being impacted, what we need to focus on. So a lot of the time we'll be there. Outside of what I'm doing here with the Met Council, I just testified last week both in the House and the Senate on driver's license for all and the impact in our communities, particularly Latino communities in greater Minnesota. And so this Wednesday, I'll be testifying around the issue of supplier diversity and workforce diversity when public utilities across the state. I served on a committee that looks at that as an issue. I was co-chair of the diversity inclusion efforts in that area. And so I do a lot of public engagement. I am the president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and so I meet with Rotaries. I meet with a lot of the smaller businesses, and so I'm quite active in these areas.
So what have you done to advance equity, and you've talked about that a little bit already, in the district community or an organization that you've worked with?
Well, it's been ingrained in almost every job or everything I've done in the community. When I was at the University of Minnesota, it was what was called then the Minority Advisory to the President of the University of Minnesota. When I was at NSP, I was the founding member of the Diversity Inclusion Council. When I was at U.S. Bank, I was co-chair of the committee as well. And it's something, again, that I'm now the co-chair of the Met Council's Equity Advisory Committee. Mm-hmm. It's something I do. It's something that, it's been asked of me in the past because of my history. And I enjoy it. It's something that I think it does have an impact on everybody's life. and how we treat people and how we treat each other. And so I'm very pleased that I'm on the committee, and I'm, again, learning a lot about that and what the impact and how do you measure equity when you look at transportation, whether it's the local communities as a stop or it's a ride. Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Members, any clarifying questions or additional questions? Yes.
You
go
know, I
ahead.
don't think we ever have done this, so I'm going to break the ice on a
Please feel free
clarifying
to.
question.
Yes.
But Mr. Pacheco's answer to the first question, and actually the second one, begs me to answer ask the question, how can we increase public safety on the transit, on the buses and the trains? How? We have to do it, but how?
Yeah, and thank you for the question first. You know, I worked with youth over the years. I was a boxing coach. I'm on the national board of Golden Gloves Boxing of America even today. I was a wrestling coach at South High School. I then moved and was a counselor for convicted felons from 18 to 30 in a place called Portland House. And so I've worked directly with troubled youth as well as young adults. They're going through mental health issues, chemical health issues. And it's difficult because when you look at the Met Council, it is a public entity, but it can't answer all those questions. What we can do is make our vehicles safe. And we've talked about how we could add we have cameras now, but maybe we have one that you can see yourself when you're riding it. And so everyone who gets on the bad guys don't like looking at themselves on a camera. Is that something we add in there? The people that, beyond someone carrying a gun, do we add somebody else that's more like the downtown ambassadors we have going through downtown to try to work with people there? It's a coalition effort that's going to have to happen, and that's the cities, the counties, the Met Council, and we have a lot of responsibility for making those buses and the trains and other vehicles safe. So, you know, it's a way, I think I talked around you, I talked about my experience, but I don't know there's any one answer, to be honest with you. I mean, the chemical abuse right now is just rampant. And that's not only here, it's nationally. The mental health issues and where people where they can go.
Mr. Pacheco, please finish your statement as the time is up.
Okay, again, I'm not sure there is, again, a single answer. I think that what we've done in the past and what we are working with the cities and counties has to have some time to be implemented and see what we're doing right and wrong. I don't even know if we have the right metrics at this point, to be honest with you.
Thank you so much for your interest again, and have a good evening. Your time was up.
Okay, all right, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Plan. Yes. I'm gonna finish coughing. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member. Please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last name, and sharing your pronouns if you would like.
My name is Nicole Plan, P-L-A-N. My pronouns are she, her.
Great, thank you, Nicole. Nicole, we would like to give another round of introductions of ourselves to you so that you can get some more context around who we are and who's in the room. We'll use some more descriptive language as we're doing that, 10, 20 seconds. As such, I will start to demonstrate, and I want to thank Committee Member Divley for offering this recommendation to us as well. So we'll start on my right again, and then we'll proceed around. I'm Fatima Moore. I am a Black woman. I'm currently wearing a black and white checkered blazer, and it's good to have you here.
Chelsea Glabitz-Gabio, white female, and I have a scarf keeping me warm.
David Dively. I am a white male with clear glasses, a green and white plaid shirt, and a gray zip-up jacket. Thank you.
I'm Molly Cummings, and I am, I wear glasses, and I'm currently wearing orange.
Good evening. My name is Paul Gardner. I live in Shoreview. White male, age about 55. Bald, nearsighted. That's usually half the people I know.
Good evening. I'm Mohammed Ali Noor. I'm a black male. I'm wearing a gray shirt.
Hello, I'm Heidi Garrido. I am a Latina female, black glasses, almost 40, and a yellow blazer.
Oh, I am Janet. I am the over 80 woman in this room with a hot pink out jacket on.
Sam Rockwell, white male, also almost 40. I've got a beard and a blazer over a sweatshirt to keep it really formal.
Bradley Titus, white male over 40, and I would call it a gray festive sweater.
Hi, I'm Adriana Jareb. I'm a white woman. I'm 26, and I'm wearing a black jacket and glasses.
I'm Charlie Zelli, white male, over 60, and I'm wearing a warm woolen suit, no tie, to keep me warm. I'm here on an ex officio basis as chair of the Met Council.
I'm Jim Erickson. I'm a second oldest member of this group. I think so, Charlie. I think I have you beat. Norwegian American, lawyer, 50-year lobbyist at the state capitol.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Manderscheid. I'm a white woman. I'm wearing clear glasses as well. And I have a cream-colored fleece jacket on tonight. And I'm the last person.
Thank you, members. Ms. Plan, we do have some prepared questions for you, which we shared in advance. We will have one council member each ask those questions of you. Before we do that, however, would you like to offer an opening statement to the committee?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for the great descriptions. I very much appreciate that. I'm a South Minneapolis resident, but I grew up in the suburbs. So I do, in this Metropolitan Council, being the whole region, I feel like I have an understanding of living in different regions. So, and I also have a history in social services and healthcare. So I have recently, in the last 5 years, started to look into policy and explore that. So I am grateful to have this opportunity to talk to everybody about that.
Great, thank you. Members, before you ask your question, please state your first name as well.
Good evening, Nicole. I'm Mohammed Ali Noor. The first question is that what policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Okay, it's a tricky question because I am very interested in all of the in all of them. I love the environment, and it was kind of a tough choice to choose which one. So I guess I'll just talk about two of them. Transportation is probably the most important to me, and housing is the second. Being an individual that has a disability and does not drive, I rely on public transportation. So that is kind of crucial to me. And I've also seen how public transportation impacts other people as well. And also housing is very important to me also. I think the affordability of housing is very critical right now. It has been for a while, for people of all ages and backgrounds. I've seen seniors struggle with finding affordable housing. I know personally myself, I've had some trouble finding housing at some point just because at the time I wasn't working and I couldn't afford a lot of places to live. And I wanted to find a place to live that I felt safe. So I think all of these issues, safety is involved, as the last candidate had mentioned. But I feel like transportation is critical in many aspects, public transportation, but also, you know, biking and transportation, or biking and walking, pedestrians, roadways, planning, urban development, things like that. Transportation kind of links all those things. That's what gets everybody around. So I believe it's very critical. And as I mentioned, housing also is very important.
Thank you. This is Heidi Garrido. The second question is, council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
I feel like this is a great opportunity to get more involved with stakeholders and constituents in the community, individuals, organizations, business owners. I feel like meeting with all of those people to talk about how they feel, get their feedback, and also collaborate with them and move forward towards the plans that we've have in place, the 2040 Thrive Plan, and also I know that the Transportation 2050 Plan is in the process right now also. So helping move that forward, including people in the community, and also, you know, educating them too as to what we're doing. I feel like transparency is important, and having it be a two-way street with stakeholders and constituents. I think that being a part of this committee is also learning from other people. So not just my district, but all the districts. I would reach out to my district, but I believe that learning from other people is also a good way. You know, I have one perspective, but every single person has their own perspective. And so I feel like just having that contact with them is the first critical piece of that. And also, I just forgot what I was going to say. I think that meeting with all the different stakeholders, I think, is very important, not just one area of that.
This is Janet, and my question is, what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or any organization that you're involved with?
I have become involved with my neighborhood association. I'm in the Lowry Hill East Neighborhood Association, and I didn't know that they existed 10 years ago, but you know, in the last 5 years, I've gotten involved in them, and I really like what I see. I think neighborhood associations are really important. It connects us with businesses, with neighbors, with what's going on in the environment, climate, everything, every aspect, parks. So I was really grateful to be involved in that, and look forward to still having involvement with that. And also I have trained staff and faculty at the University of Minnesota on accessibility issues for people with disabilities, making things more inclusive. And I'm currently on the board of directors for Twin Cities Adaptive Cycling. So getting people that don't normally have the opportunity to be outside and active and do some cycling, to give them the opportunity to do that. We take advantage of the greenway and of all of our nice trails that we have, and we also help integrate people with disabilities into the community. So I'm always looking for other opportunities to get involved. And some of these things that I'm involved with now have kind of linked me up with other groups. So even if I'm not directly on the board of that group or directly involved in it, I have networked with them and learned a lot from them, and they've learned a lot from our groups too.
Thank you.
Great. Members, do you have any follow-up questions for Ms. Plan? Not seeing any, Ms. Plan, this is Fatima. Please feel free to leave us with closing remarks.
I appreciate all of your time, and I feel like I have a unique perspective being a woman, being a person with a disability, being a member of the community, and also working with other people and other populations, other cultures. I think that, you know, I'm always excited to learn and collaborate with people and move forward as a team and figure out what the best thing to do is, and also, you know, assess how we're doing. There's a lot of things we are doing well right now.
Great, thank you. Thanks for your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Thomas? Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member. Please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last, and sharing any preferred gender pronouns.
Yes, certainly. My name is Ian Thomas. Last name spelled Thomas, and I use he, him pronouns.
Great. Mr. Thomas, as you know, we have prepared questions which we sent to you in advance. Before we ask those questions, would you like to give an opening statement?
Yes, I would. I work for America Walks. This is a national education and advocacy organization focused on encouraging more walking, but more so creating walkable communities across the United States. And data shows very clearly that communities that are safe and easy to walk in are more equitable, are healthier, have a lower carbon footprint, and generally support a lot of the goals that communities have. I live in St. Louis Park. I'm a new transplant to the Twin Cities area, having just moved here last year. And my wife and I very intentionally chose the Twin Cities as a metro area that has very strong public transportation systems, walking and biking networks, as well as a great system of parks and trails. Previously, I lived in Columbia, Missouri, where I served on the city council and advanced Vision Zero policies, affordable housing and economic mobility strategies. And all of my professional and political work has focused on equity, sustainability, community health, and quality of life for everybody.
Great. Thank you. We'll start with those questions.
Good evening. What policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing, and why?
Yeah, I think all of the issues that the council oversees are critical: public services, parks and public spaces, water and wastewater, community health, community development, and housing. But transportation is my area of greatest expertise, is probably where I would provide most support to the council. And I think it's absolutely key, a key element of strong communities. Public transit creates the opportunity for economic mobility. Walkable communities and neighborhoods create health, safety, local economic development benefits for those communities. And with this sort of a lens and framework for transportation planning, I believe we can really reduce vehicle miles traveled per capita across the region and thereby minimize the climate impact and the harm that's going to be caused to future generations.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Yeah, my goal will be to establish an online presence focused on my role as the District 6 representative to Metro Council with regular electronic communications to residents who have opted in and have an interest in receiving updates, in hearing my policy positions, in sharing their own, providing feedback, and generally being engaged in the work of the council. I would also plan to hold kind of coffee house sessions announced in advance when people can drop by to talk about their interests and concerns in these issues. I did all of that as a member of the Columbia, Missouri City Council quite successfully. With a large mailing list and high attendance at the coffee shop hours. It became Zoom hours when the pandemic hit in 2020. But I feel I have a lot of experience in citizen engagement around public policy issues. I'm new to the Twin Cities, so it'll take me a little while to kind of build that communications network. But I'll certainly start by reaching out to the local governments, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, Golden Valley, Crystal, and New Hope, all in District 6. Other stakeholders that I'll engage with would be the business community through chambers of commerce, social services, both government and nonprofit organizations, and progressive community change organizations who are advocating in the areas of public health, housing, transportation, and the environment, many of whom I were already connected with through my work and interest in transportation systems. I will also utilize, to the extent I'm able to, the Metro Council's own communication channels to build that network and have a really open two-way dialogue with as many people in District 6 and across the region as possible. And then I would also like to build stronger relationships with state agencies, specifically the Minnesota Department of Transportation. It's an interesting fact that this body oversees public transport planning for the region, and an entirely separate body oversees road and highway planning. And I think that creates problems in any area. So as much communication as we can have with the Minnesota DOT, if we are expanding the capacity of transit for all of the health and environment and equity reasons, then we should probably not be expanding the capacity of roadways at the same time. So those kind of, interactive conversations will be important.
Thank you. So what have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you've been involved with?
So before discussing equity, I want to sort of provide my understanding of that term to make sure that you're clear about what I'm talking about. And I believe that to engage in the topic of equity, it's first important to acknowledge historical harms that have taken place, both intentional and incidental, to certain groups of people, which are continuing today, and to commit to repairing those harms by prioritizing resources and opportunities to disadvantaged and marginalized groups. And I also want to note that I'm a white male with a lot of privilege, and I consider myself still to be on a learning curve around historical injustice and how to create a great quality of life for everybody. Having said that, one area I focus in my professional work is on pedestrian safety in tribal communities. And there are plenty of tribal communities in the state of Minnesota where the pedestrian fatality rate is much higher than for white urban, suburban, and rural communities. Whilst a member of the Columbia City Council, I champion public transit expansion. The state of Missouri is not known for valuing public transport, but I made a lot of progress in building support for that mode and achieving some expansion. I also worked with homelessness nonprofits and increased funding, or really started providing funding from the city's human services budget to support homeless shelters. Introduced the idea of community land trusts in Columbia, Missouri, which led to the establishment and quite significant success of the Columbia Community Land Trust, now owning something like 2 or 3 dozen permanently affordable homes, which are incrementally addressing the shortage of affordable housing, and advocating for inclusionary zoning and other policies that would work with the private sector to ensure a better supply of affordable housing. And one very specific issue where I raised concerns many times, and where I did achieve some changes in the area of development impact fees for new housing. At the time I joined the council, there basically were very few of those, and what were there was greatly inadequate, which meant that the existing residents of the community, and it was a rapidly growing community at that time, existing residents, many of them poor and living in dilapidated areas in the inner city, were paying for the expansion of utility systems for new residents moving in, buying very expensive houses, typically on the edge of town. And this inequity, had not really been acknowledged or dealt with. So equity, I think, is the most important thing that we have to face, because there has been so much injustice in the past.
Members, any follow-up questions?
I have just a quick one. Are you aware, or have you at all explored Minnesota's pedestrian plans? I think it's one of very few states that actually has a Minnesota walk plan. MnDOT actually manages that.
Yes, I certainly have. I've written about it and studied it. And I think it's also fair to say that MnDOT, and I know you were the director of the agency at some point in the past, that MnDOT has probably the largest cohort of staff working on pedestrian and bicycle issues. Many states, Missouri included, has one FTE or maybe 0.5, and MnDOT, I think, has somewhere close to 10 now working on alternative transportation, and that's what it's going to take to really sort of shift mode. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. The time is, I think we're done. All right. Well, thank you so much for your interest, and look forward to hearing from us in the future. Thank you.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
That ends our District 6 interviews. And so we will prepare, because I believe I see interviewees, candidates in the audience. So we will begin our District 8 final district interviews for the night. I have a few names here. I'll start first with Arens. Is there, all right? Please approach the table. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a practice where before we begin a new district, we like to go around and do introductions. So anyone who's new, watching online knows who's in the room, as well as who's being interviewed, obviously. So I'll go ahead and start with introductions. I am Fatima Moore. Welcome. Chelsea Glavitz-Gavu.
David Dively.
Molly Cummings.
Paul Gardner.
Mohammed Ali Noor.
Heidi Garrido.
Janet Williams.
Sam Rockwell.
Bradley Titus.
Adriana Jarrett.
And I'm Charlie Zelli. I'm here on an ex officio basis as chair of the Met Council.
Yeah, all right. Jim Erickson. Joe.
Melissa Mandershine.
I see Jim at Gopher football games, so I'm glad to see him wearing the colors tonight. That's great.
Jim is representing.
Yep.
Very well.
Every day,
I think. Well, again, welcome and thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member. Please introduce yourself by saying your full name, spelling your last, and sharing any pronouns you like to go by.
My name is Duane Arens. It's Arens. My pronouns are he, him.
Wonderful. We do have questions that we shared with you in advance, and a council member will ask each question of you. Before we move into those questions, though, would you like to provide an opening statement?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity. This is looking forward to this, and it's just kind of bursting at the seams. You just think of all kinds of things to say, and not very much time to say them. But as you probably know, I did spend a little bit of time on the Met Council about 20 years ago, and then they redistricted, so we got paired up with about the 2 others, and so it wasn't the one that was selected. So so I know of the Met Council, and I've worked with issues of the Met Council, even inside and outside. For 15 years, I worked for Connectus Energy doing their economic development, community development, some of their government affairs as well too. And so the economic development background, I think, kind of fits right into the Met Council. And looking forward to answering the other 3 questions here.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
We'll proceed with our questions.
Good evening. What policy issues before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Well, I've heard a lot of people say transportation, and I guess that would be one of my choices as well too, as well as affordable housing and safety. And I did spend a little bit of time on the transportation committee when I was on the Met Council, and it was one of the first votes for the Hiawatha line. And I was on the waste committee back then as well too. But kind of going back there, the safety thing is always a big deal too. I'm a small real estate developer now, and so my buildings are in Minneapolis. I'm from Albert Lea originally. I've been up here for about 40 years, but I'm originally from Albert Lea. I still have friends down there, and some of them don't want to come up to Minneapolis because of the crime issue, and that bugs me. That bugs me like crazy because their perception from coming from a small town like that is a lot different than what the reality is. There are problems up here and stuff, but you can go to a Twins game, you can go to a Vikings game, I believe, and feel safe. You can go downtown to a restaurant and you can feel safe. So, but there are problems, there are pockets, and we have to work on those. And I think being on some kind of a safety committee would actually fit that bill as well too there. I used to work for the Department of Trade and Economic Development as well too, and like I mentioned, Connectus Energy for 15 years, and so we have 27 communities in our district, and so in our service area, and so it's my responsibility to keep relations and to keep communication with all 27 of those districts, and so there's a lot of constituents in the district, and so that's the fun part, is actually doing the communication and having the coffees and so forth there, and so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to reapply again to get re-engaged like that. So some of the other things that I did too with economic development was I'm a certified business retention and expansion, and so I worked with probably a dozen communities with their business retention and expansion programs. With their shovel-ready programs, with all these communities getting things ready for economic development, and so it was all about building and all about being fair and up in mostly in Oka County with some of these surrounding areas up there. So, and working on Connectus Energy too, so it wasn't just the Hiawatha line I was involved with as well too, but the North Star Commuter Rail. And so working with Anoka County and working with the cities that the North Star went through, working with congressional members, going to Washington D.C. and meeting with congressional members about the North Star Commuter Rail, and so very, very interesting. Learned tons of stuff, and but it's all about communication and all about kind of sharing and getting things done like that.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and community meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Well, like I mentioned, you know, this is the fun part. If you don't like communicating with constituents, you know, you shouldn't be a public servant. And so there's, you know, like I mentioned, there's, you know, 27 communities that I was involved with in the Chamber of Commerce. I was the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. I was also the chairman of the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission in Blaine, and oversaw about $8 million of economic expansion there. It's about a $40 million economic impact the National Sports Center has, and about 4 million visitors a year. It's the 5th largest tourist attraction in Minnesota, and it's super interesting. It's about the size of Central Park in New York, and as you know, it's the largest soccer complex in the world, the largest hockey complex in the world, and so you know, gems like that, you know, draw people. You got to have transportation to that and things, but just to be able to oversee that and to work with the city and all the public officials to make things like that work, I think is a very, very big skill to have. And you know, some of the stakeholders, you know, are, you know, as you know, are the, you know, city council members, the legislators, you know, the county commissioners, you know, the minority communities, you know, I did hear Councilmember Pacheco talk about, you know, he's the president of the Latino Chamber of Commerce, you know, the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, and so I would imagine that first month, well, I mean, coffee bill will be pretty high, you know, to go out there and meet people, but that's the super exciting part to me. I can't wait to do that. And so, and that was one of my strong points when I was with the chamber, or when I was with the Met Council as well too, was to get out in the community and to meet with them.
Thank you. What have you done to advance equity in the district, the community, or an organization that you've worked with?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things. Let me start with, I own an art building in Northeast Minneapolis, and maybe some of you have been there. It's a Solar Arts building. Has a brewery on the first floor. When I mention that, the Indeed Brewery, they go, "Oh, I guess I have been to your building." You know, but I've got about 20 artists, 25 artists on the second floor. I have an event center on the third floor. About 30% of my artists are LGBTQ or minorities, and the third floor, we, you know, it's in the lease up there. I rent it out to caterers, a lot of weddings up there and so forth, but I do have it reserved where I can give it free to nonprofits. Edison High School, for example, is about 4 blocks away. So I give the space free to Edison High School. I give the space free to the Food Shelf. Some of my other favorite nonprofits I do is Pakistani. They do microloans to women in South Africa from $100 to $1,500, and so there's a Girls on the Run nonprofit that pairs up disadvantaged girls with adult female runners to run once a week, and so. We're busy doing nonprofits there on the third floor as well too.
Thank you.
Members, do you have any follow-up questions? Not seeing any. Please leave us with some your closing remarks, please.
Yeah. Well, you know, I feel very, very lucky, and when I do work with some of the artists that you know struggle economically and things, and you know, and I see that, and I feel, you know, I go home to a nice warm house and stuff, and drive a nice car here and stuff, and you know, you feel very, very fortunate, and so this is one of the ways that I can get back to people. And you can see on my resume there, I do a lot of volunteering. I have my whole career, and this is another way to help that.
Again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
We have Gordon. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
What a great group.
Thank you. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member. Please state your full name, spell your last, and offer any gender pronouns you'd like us to use.
Sure. I go by Cam Gordon. My full name technically is Cameron Alexander Gordon. Last name spelling is Gordon, and I'm comfortable with he, him, his pronouns.
Wonderful. Thank you. We do have prepared questions, which we've shared with you in advance. Before we head into those questions, though, would you like to provide an opening statement?
Sure. First, I need to know the timekeeper to help me so I don't get too far.
Your time will technically start when we ask the first question.
Okay,
So
then
this
I-
does not deplete your time, but
Okay, my opening comments.
modest
then
with
will
your
be
opening
90
statement.
90 minutes.
Ah, you found a loophole.
I can be brief. I'm just delighted to be here. I have incredible respect for the Metropolitan Council. I think the Metropolitan Council offers an incredible opportunity for our state and for our region here to do regional planning. I think it is probably an incredibly difficult and challenging job, given the jurisdictions involved and everything that is involved. But I think if we do this right, we can be a shining example for the nation about how to do it. And I can talk more about that when I answer the questions.
Thank you, and we'll proceed with our questions.
Good evening. What policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
I'll admit, when I first read that question, I was most interested in working, and still I'm very interested in light rail. I think it's critically important. I was involved in, well, actually, as an outsider with the first blue line that went in, and then more as a city council member when the green line was put in. And right now, I think a lot of our attention should be focused on getting Southwest built and getting Bottineau done, and that's critically important. My interest goes a little bit beyond that, though, because I really think what before us as a region is how we do effective planning and implementation and how we measure that plan as we're going. That certainly ties into light rail, but also there's so much more. And Thrive 2040 is fabulous. How are we measuring that? How are we seeing how we're doing on our goals? And it's not just that we're planning for what might come in the future, but we also do planning in a way that is based on values and is based on principles and what are those goals? Where do we want to go? What is the vision that we have? And I think it's critically important, and I'm most excited about figuring out how we can do that well and how we can do it well, especially now moving into 2050, and what are we going to look for the next 10 years.
Great, thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
I think public engagement is incredibly important. In fact, I almost see that as the job of the district representative, is to be that connecting link. It works both ways in terms of who benefits, the connecting link between staff, between what the Met Council as an organization and an institution is doing and is working on, and also connection to the residents in the district and those businesses and those business interests. By playing a key role, you can keep people informed, you can help them better understand why decisions are being made, what decisions are being made, so that people understand that and can get buy-in, but you can also take what residents are saying and businesses are saying back, so you can end up making better decisions and you can feed that back in there. And if there's a good relationship that the council member can have working with staff and with the community, it's all for the better benefit. I'm prepared to give up a good amount of time to meet. One of my policies has always been, I will meet with anybody who wants to meet with me. I will go to you and show up at your organizational meeting. I have had some experience being a representative as an elected city council member for the city of Minneapolis, if you weren't aware. And I have recognize the importance of going to those neighborhood meetings, those community meetings. I can't say that I can show up to every one of those, but that's a key piece of it. Also, connecting with those jurisdictions who are involved, because all over the Metropolitan Council, there are other elected officials who are working hard to represent those people, and building those relationships with them can be key because of their listening, identifying leaders in other community groups and in other groups. I also believe in the written word. I think it's important that we communicate as council members through regular newsletters, and I will have time to dedicate to that. I'm prepared to set aside some time every week in the morning so that it's just for meeting with residents and businesses and open office hours, if you will, somewhere in the community, but also time that people can schedule to meet with me, because I think that's critically important that they hear from the Metropolitan Council so they know that it's important and valuable and they can influence it.
Okay, question 3. What have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you've worked with?
So I was very involved in this with the Minneapolis City Council. I was first elected in 2005, and at that time, there weren't a lot of people paying attention to racial disparities. I mean, there was Mind the Gap, there was issues at the state level, and other people were concerned about it. And so I had run and it was interesting, during the campaign, I was saying that racial justice is really important in the city and we have healing to do and work to do. Some of my opponents were thinking we were done. I don't know if you remember the hide your head in the sand period back then, but there was a lot of that going on. I was able to find some wedge issues, and I have to say that it wasn't me, it was me listening to others. I remember Sean Lewis gave me a report that had been made to Congress about the disparity in employment in Minneapolis. And employment happened to be a big deal with the mayor at the time, I.T. Ryback. And we had a goal to have our unemployment rate equal the suburban unemployment rate. And we achieved that goal. But lo and behold, we achieved that goal mostly because of white workers. There was still a dramatic disparity. I was able to build support for looking at that and moving forward. Months went by. Luckily, we had staff who were enthusiastic on our workforce councils were interested in working on that and moving forward. And so I was able to bring a resolution to the city council declaring institutional racism a problem in the city of Minneapolis. And believe it or not, that was hard for some of my colleagues to admit to and support at the time. But we were able to do that. And also that kind of kicked off a series of things. The premise at the time, especially because what I heard out in the community was, if we're going to make any difference here, we need to lead by example, because people aren't going to take Minneapolis seriously if we go out and say, you need to diversify your workforce, or what you could imagine. So that's what this was all about. That ended up growing into a staff, which has now become a department of racial equity, inclusion, and belonging, I think that they're calling it now. We ended up developing a racial equity framework so that every committee report that came to the council had to include a racial equity impact statement. So things grew out of that because it did catch on. And it's some of the work that I'm proudest of, and it also demonstrated to me that sometimes you just need to be able to pull the right levers to make a difference. And if you're in the right place at the right time, something kind of catches on. Later, that was a major issue in some of the mayoral races, and it's continuing to be a big issue, and we certainly haven't solved it yet.
Thank you.
Members, any follow-up questions? Not seeing any. You do have some time left, so if you'd like to leave us with closing remarks, please do.
Sure. I would hate to miss an opportunity not to have some closing remarks since you offered it. I am really grateful for all of you taking this on and being here, and the late night that you're going through and having to listen to all these folks. I really appreciate it. I think having good people on the Met Council can make a big difference. I am ready to put some energy towards this. I happen to have in my career some of my time freed up, so I'm ready to dedicate it to that and use some of the skills that I've developed over the years to continue to serve my community and our community and help make this the best region we can in our state and in our country. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Continuing on, we will have Muse.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Fresh cup, yes. Welcome and thank you for your interest in serving again as a council member. Please introduce yourself, your full name, spell your last, and share your gender pronouns if you prefer.
Thank you. My name's Abdirahman Muse. Last name M-U-S-E. He, him.
Thank you. As you know, we do have prepared questions which we've shared with you in advance. Before we begin those questions, would you like to opening up with a statement?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me first. It was great to serve and represent District 8 for last 4 years. It was a really great honor. I know the council is heavily staff-driven entity. And the council members have a very limited agenda-setting capacity. As the staff, especially senior staff, tend to sideline the council members and limit their ability to run the show. I heard many important Met Council-related news from the media. Sometimes it was frustrating. Despite all of those challenges, we have accomplished a lot. And I look forward to serve another term so we can advance equity at the regional level and in my district.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll begin with our questions.
Good evening. What policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Thank you. After reflecting for my last 4 years, I think the most important and critical issue at the council is the lack of diversity among senior level staff members. Let me explain why that's important and why that matters. For last 4 years, I interacted with very limited senior officers of color from the Met Council. I can name it a few: Lisa, Braha, Syed Jordan, and George, who recently joined us. All are doing really great work. For the last 4 years, many employees of color reach out to me complaining about one issue, which is they don't have a lack, and the issue was the lack of advancement and upward mobility at the council. I saw them leaving one by one. That was frustrating. As we are struggling with advancing equity at the regional level, this was really heartbreaking to see that we are not providing, we are not advancing equity internally enough. For example, we don't have one single person of color among some departments. I can name legal department. In our entire legal staff, there's no one single person of color. Representation matters, specifically as the region rapidly going to be more diverse. In 2040, we will have around 45 to 50 residents of color. If this, the trend continues, I think we are not, meeting our standards, and the public will have a challenge. Will have real hard time to trust us that we'll be able to advance equity if we are not practicing that internally. And that's really issue to me is important. Why? Because as the staff are as the Met Council is heavily staff driven, if you don't have enough people of color represented, then you are leaving so many communities behind. And that's really issue that I care most about. For the last 4 years, I have been vocal about that issue. I raised it again and again. I sit on management committee, and I, raised this concern a lot. And I know when you challenge the status quo also pushes back. And you make some people uncomfortable. I understand that some people might not like to see me reappointed at the council, but if I get another opportunity, I will keep pushing the envelope. I am an organizer by trade. When I see, power dynamics that's not working the way that's supposed to be working. So I think that's an issue that we really need to address at the council. And if we address that, then we can break the cycle of status quo and reinforcing status quo. We have to have inclusive leadership at the senior level. And then we can take that, inclusion to, lower levels. That's the most important issue from power dynamics. And, for the last 4 years, I only get one call from, getting updates, and that was from the chair. Thank you. I appreciated that. But, we feel as a council members, we're really kind of not engaged enough. And sometimes I feel the senior level staff members are not really maybe giving enough trust to the council members. So I think that dynamics, we have to break that down. And because of that, really dynamics, sometimes Met Council moves from a political crisis into another. We have so many talented council members at the council who brings a lot of political experience, community connections. But I feel sometimes the senior level who are not inclusive enough and diverse enough are not leveraging the council members to really advance the equity at the council the first and then externally.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
I plan to be more available and present in my next term. Specific groups that I would like to reach out are students and transit riders who work at the airport. I have significant workforce in my district who use the public transit, and that's really an area that I want to focus on. Also, I will reach out to community groups in my district and small business owners. But really, those students and airport workers are really key constituents, and anyone else who will, be concerned about the issue of safety at the council. I'm an incumbent. I do not need another 2 years to learn the dynamics. I already know agents of change at the Met Council, and those who try to maintain the status quo and need some help to see the light. So I will spend more time now in really engaging with my constituents and with my district to build inclusive outreach. And I intend to be more present in my second term.
Thank you. So what have you done to advance equity in the district, in your district, the community, or an organization that you've worked with?
Longer list. One, my district received $10 million local community grants from the council for the last 4 years. I am a labor organizer by trade. I am one of the first folks who forced Amazon to negotiate with Amazon workers. Currently, I'm pushing a bill that will help Minnesota warehouse workers to have safer working conditions. This bill will force Amazon to really refill the data or the production rate, but it will also benefit every other Minnesota warehouse worker. So I'm really excited about that work. And also I work at the City Hall, and during my time at the City Hall, I specifically focused on the issue of inclusion, HR, and making sure that we really hire more inclusive workforce at the City Hall. And I have a track record on advancing equity and being vocal about system change. So I have a strong track record on advancing the equity.
Thank you.
Thanks. Members, do you have any follow-up questions? Seeing none, you do have additional time left. Would you like to leave us with the closing remark?
Thank you. I look forward to serve another term, and my core issue is, again, really tackling these dynamics I raised earlier. An inclusive senior leadership at the Met Council is crucial. Unless we address that issue, nothing else will improve. I don't want to see the few current seniors of color that we have right now leave, as the others who complained to me 4 years ago left one by one. I want to raise that issue and work on that issue. Another issue is really making sure that we do inclusive procurement process. And we have already done some impressive work, I think, to Judy and the staff are trying, but we can do more. For the last 4 years, I heard a lot, again and again, that we did not have enough contracts of color to get procurements and contracts. It was very frustrating. I saw over and over again that we're leaving so many, resources that can go to the communities of color and reduce the disparity that is not happening. So I would like to work on the second term to really work on that issue. More inclusive procurement process and breaking down the big contracts so small community, people of color owned businesses can really have an opportunity to drive and be part of the growth that we're trying to create. So it's time to create really, I look forward to work on another term so we can create an inclusive Met Council internally and externally.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Osman, please come on up. Welcome and thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member.
Thank you.
Please state your full name, spell your last, and share your gender pronouns if you'd like.
My first name is Yassin. My last name is Osman, Osman, and I go by him and his.
Wonderful. As you know, we shared questions with you in advance of this interview. Before we go into those questions, would you like to leave us with an opening statement?
Yes, my name is Yassin Osman. I'm a small business owner and community organizer. I'm also a family man and a father of 4 kids.
Thank you. We'll start our questions.
Good evening. What policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing and why?
Well, I am interested in everything. Can I say that?
Yes, you may.
But I guess I have to pick one or two. So I will pick the transportation and housing. As a community organizer, I had an opportunity last year to work with other community organizers to encourage people to go out and to vote. It was election year. Some of the problems that our community was facing was a lack of a safe transportation to go to the polling station. So I saw a lot of people, they were trying to skip voting because of the lack of safe transportation. So that's why I'm interested in the transportation. Also, I'm interested in housing because as a community organizer, I work with a lot of students and young kids when they have a problem with the school or finding a job. So the most problem that they facing is the housing issues. So that's why I'm interested in those 2 issues, housing and safe transportation for our community.
Great, thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement that you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Well, I think 20 to 40 hours, it's very small. So I think it needs more time to go out and to reach the people that they live in our district, especially business and community leaders. So I will dedicate it maybe another 20 to 40 hours monthly to go informal meeting, have a coffee with them, and listen the issue that they having. So I can, when I come back to the council, raise the issues that have our community, especially business leaders, elected official, city council, mayors, county officials. All these people has to be met and listen the issues that they have. So when I come back to the council, so the issues that I have, I represent them to them, to the Met Council, to address all the issues that they're facing. Thank you.
So What have you done to advance equity in your district, community, or an organization that you've been involved with?
Well, as I said earlier, I work with the community organizations in Minneapolis. So most of the time that we spend with the young kids, especially nowadays, you know, the young kids, they have a lot of mental issues. So that's the real equity. Our futures is those kids. So also I work as the senior advisor to the Office of the Prime Minister prior to come here. So we developed a lot of policies. You know, in Somalia, when the civil war happened, there is a lot of institution that has been collapsed. So we work in justice, in human rights, in anti-corruption. So those was also the area that I worked before.
Thank you.
Members, do you have any follow-up questions? Seeing none, you do have additional time left. So if you'd like to leave us with closing remarks, please do.
Well, I will first of all, I will thank you all of you, because you guys are doing very good job, and also staying very late to listen all these people away from the family in cold weather. So I will just want to thank you very much, and I hope you recommended me to the governor to Met Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have our final interviewee next, Karen. If I'm not saying your name right, with any right fluctuation, please feel free to correct me as well.
Good evening.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest in the Met Council and serving as a council member. Could you please state your full name, spell your last, and share your gender pronouns if you'd like?
Yes, my name is Divya Karan. Divya is my first name, Karan is my last name. I use she, her pronouns, and my last name spells Karan.
Wonderful, thank you. Similarly, we've offered these questions to you in advance of this interview. Before we start those questions, would you like to provide us with opening remarks? It's late.
And I really appreciate what you're doing today, your time, the time that you're giving to this important task. I feel really privileged to be in this room today. I came to the US as a student, as an undergraduate student, eons ago. At this point, I've spent more than half my life in the US. So I feel that as an immigrant to the US, I have experiences that are unique and rich, perspective as someone who has lived in the Twin Cities area for over 20 years now, someone who has really made full use of the facilities and education resources that the Twin Cities community provides. I'm really grateful for that, and I hope I can be a part of giving something back to the community at this point.
Thank you. We'll start the questions.
Good evening. What policy issue before the Metropolitan Council are you most interested in addressing, and why?
So, transportation, as many of the other candidates have indicated as their top concern also. Transportation and housing, but I choose transportation because I think transportation is really key. So, for example, even if you provide affordable housing, if it is located where the residents can't get to their place of work or schools without proper, affordable, and readily available transportation, then the benefit of housing is not fully leveraged. someone who's lived along the University Avenue corridor, to have seen the tremendous change along the University Avenue because of the light rail, the way the light rail connects the two major cities, how it has really helped businesses along that corridor thrive. Wherever light rail has reached, it has enabled small businesses to thrive, and arts community has also greatly benefited from it. And to me, arts community in the Twin Cities is really what attracts so many of our residents to the Twin Cities. I think all of the different communities that I'm currently part of, my professional work, the arts, I serve on the board of an arts company. I have also served on the board of a school. And in all of those different communities, there are people who have come from all over, outside the Twin Cities, outside of Minnesota, from warmer places. And there's a reason why people move here and stay. And the cultural richness and the welcoming communities that exist in the Twin Cities area are a big part of it. And I believe firmly that transportation can only further enhance what's already has been enabled.
Thank you. Council members must dedicate 20 to 40 hours monthly for Met Council and committee meetings and district-specific public engagement with stakeholders. Tell us about the public engagement you commit to doing in your district with community and business stakeholders.
Currently, even with my full-time job, I am already spending at least 20 to 30 hours a month on different initiatives that I volunteer my time to. As I mentioned, some of the volunteer time that I volunteer to serving on boards of organizations. I'm very engaged within the Indian, or I should say South Asian diaspora in the Twin Cities. So I organize meetings and events as I can on a frequent basis. We meet every 2 weeks for different activities. So I think as a council member, I will have to scale back on what I'm already doing. And I do believe that it's the quality of engagement that's really what I'm going to be focusing on. So even if it's 20 hours and not 40, those 20 hours will be very well spent. And the ways in which I would do that is by doing everything I can, really trying very hard to attend as many of the neighborhood meetings, any city council meetings in different cities in my district, to engage with the community. And I, as a candidate also mentioned, I believe very much in effective written communication. So I've used that. I do that in my professional work, but also in the other activities that I'm currently engaged in. And I will continue to make full use of emails and any other written communications as needed. The only other thing I would add is that I will look for advice from council members who have served on the council to learn how they have found it, how they have been able to effectively engage in the communities that they serve.
Thank you. Now, for the third question, what have you done to advance equity in your district, your community, or an organization that you've worked with?
The way I would respond to that question is that even though I may not have started a campaign for XYZ or not started an organization that works on a specific equity issue, as a minority, even as a student, I was in a field of study where I was the only woman in a graduating class. So in the 4 years, being the only woman in the classroom, the way I've contributed or made difference in equity with people around me is by standing up for myself. So by setting an example of others who are in the same position, either minority position or any kind of unequal position to have a voice. At the corporations that I worked with, there are always DEI initiatives. Companies do make an effort to try to educate the workforce and being aware and current on, being very aware of these issues and of the fact that they have to play a role in making the workplace a welcome place for all the workers. So I've participated actively in those, in the discussions. I bring up questions if I don't hear them being raised. And as the reason I'm with the organizations that I work is because their stated objective is to work for social justice. It's something that's close to my heart, and I will continue to look for ways to make a difference there.
Thank you.
Members, are there any follow-up questions? Not seeing any, you do have a little bit of time left, so would you like to leave us with a closing statement?
I would just like to say that I'm really thrilled to be here, to have this opportunity to hopefully get a chance to serve on the council. And I really value the work the Met Council has been doing, the difference that it has made, in a very visible difference that I have seen in the time that I've lived in the Twin Cities. So in any way that I can serve, I would welcome the opportunity. And thank you so much for your time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is our final interview for tonight. Before we adjourn the meeting, I do want to say it was great to hear from all the finalists tonight. They were truly an incredible cohort as well, and I want to thank you all who are still watching or here in the room for your interest in serving your region. I also want to give a big shout out to the nominating committee as well for your commitment to this important effort. In case you were not watching or in the room when we began our interviews tonight, I do want to highlight a few next steps again. Following the public interviews concluding on Tuesday, tomorrow night, January 31, the nominating committee will make candidate recommendations to the governor and lieutenant governor for consideration as possible Metropolitan Council members. The governor will make the final decision on who will represent the Metropolitan Council and has until March 6th this year, 2023, to do so. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good night because we are adjourned.